This is Attorney Sarah Holmes. It is April 26, 2020, and this is our webinar, How COVID-19 is Infecting the Wedding Industry and 3 Steps to Recovery. Okay, let me just move the slides here. All right, so a little bit about us and our law firm. So I'm Sarah Holmes. I am a Philadelphia-based business lawyer. We help startups and we help establish businesses with things like startup, doing their contracts, protect themselves from liability, trademark, copyright, partnership, any of that type of stuff. And we can help people Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We have an office on the main line, and we're licensed in New Jersey. So we've been around, my firm has been around for 6.5 years, and we have always only helped small business owners. So we know what they need, what they want, and we try to help them as much as we can. And especially with the way things are right now, our main goal is to keep as many of our clients in business as we can. And over the years, we have helped a number of clients in the wedding industry. So when I say wedding industry, what am I talking about? Well, we've been getting a lot of calls from current and new clients, people in the wedding field that are just freaked out right now. They're freaked out by all the COVID stuff because of the prohibitions on large gatherings. People are canceling weddings. They're doing all kinds of stuff. So what kinds of businesses are worried right now? Well, certainly event planners. That includes, people that plan weddings. Photographers, videographers. We have heard a lot from photographers and people that do videography. Florists, people that do floral arrangements and flowers for weddings. It could be people that are the DJ and entertainment, the caterers. We have makeup artist clients, and of course the venues. These are all calls we're getting on a weekly basis right now from people that are freaked out over what's going on with the COVID-19 situation and the lockdowns. All right, so what's happening in the industry? Well, you are seeing many cancellations and postponements. Most of the spring weddings have been canceled or postponed. People are now starting to also cancel and postpone summer weddings. Now, even though we are hoping that a lot of areas are out of lockdown by summer, people are thinking that the prohibition on large groups is still going to continue. So while people may no longer be confined to their homes and might be able to go out and do some things again, most people anticipate that some of these restrictions, such as no more than, let's say 50 people involved in any one place, social distancing, the 6 feet apart, people expect that those controls are going to remain in place for a long time until there's some treatment or vaccine available. And obviously that is going to have a severe and hard impact on the wedding industry. I think that you don't see a ton of weddings that have 50 or less people. Even a small wedding by most standards is 80 to 100 people. And it's definitely not unusual to have weddings of 200, 300 people. Usually they're large celebrations involving multi-generations of family, so great-grandparents, grandparents, sometimes even bride and groom parents are, now what we consider older people in that COVID sort of target range. So people are definitely concerned about, even if we get out of the lockdowns, what's happening with these weddings? Are people really going to be having these big weddings anytime in the near future? A lot of people are, in fact, going to do some scaled down events. And when people do scaled down events, how does that affect the wedding vendors? Their services are more likely to be scaled down as well. Whereas maybe before, a wedding cake vendor would have made a cake for 300 people. Now maybe they're making a wedding cake for 50 people. So obviously that's a big difference in revenue. It's a big difference in your cost of goods sold. And it's going to definitely affect the bottom line of your business. Same things with the event venues. Obviously, if you are somebody that has huge ballrooms available for hundreds of people, you're going to have trouble potentially booking those rooms. And bartender, catering, same thing. You know, there's a big difference in a catering bill for 50 people and a catering bill for 300 people. So this could have a wide-ranging trickle-down effect for wedding vendors and people in the industry. Okay, cancellations. A lot of people are freaked out about cancellations. Most wedding vendors take deposits when people agree to hire you and you book a date. So a lot of vendors are wondering, do I need to return all these deposits? If you were previously booked up all summer long and all fall for weddings, that could be a lot of money. If you're taking $500 deposits from people and you had 25 events scheduled, that's a lot of money. And that's a lot of money you'd have to come out of pocket now to refund people's deposits. The other issue is rescheduling. A lot of people are concerned. Okay, people want to reschedule. All these people now want to have a fall wedding in October. October was previously a really busy month for me. There's no way that you can be double booking all these dates for people that want to reschedule in the fall. So what do you do if your client wants you to reschedule to their new date and you are not available? Finally, can you refuse a new date? Some wedding vendors have told me that they just simply might not feel safe going and photographing a wedding with 100 or more people. They themselves feel like they could be putting their own health or the health of their employees at risk by being asked to do a large event anytime in the near future. And so if they refuse, what are the consequences of that? Could their client sue them then for not fulfilling the contract? You know, what's going to happen there? All right, so step one, we're going to go over 3 steps then to try to mitigate some of this damage from COVID as much as possible for folks in the wedding industry. Step 1, pull out those contracts. What is in that contract? What does it say? We've spoken to a lot of people lately that told me they got these contracts from LegalZoom. And when they send me the contract from LegalZoom, they're kind of a hot mess. Sometimes people had a friend draft the contract for them. Maybe their friend was a lawyer, but they weren't a business lawyer. They had somebody they knew in the legal field draft it. And I've reviewed those, and sorry, but those are a mess too sometimes. Sometimes people Frankenstein together a document. They took contracts from an old employer. They took contracts from another vendor. They found something that someone else was doing that they thought they could copy, and they cobbled it together for themselves, and they actually have no idea what their contract says or what it means. So these are problems that on a good day and when times are good, you know, may not come back to bite you, or they'll maybe come back to bite you once every 5 years. With the COVID stuff, these crummy contracts are now coming back to bite you with the force of 1,000 suns every day for the next several months. So if you have a crummy contract that you never had vetted by an actual business lawyer, now is the time to pull this thing out and let's figure out how we can make it better. But that doesn't exactly help you with people that you already have signed contracts with. For those people, you're going to have to go with the deal you made and the contract you already gave them. So pull these things out, see what they have in terms of cancellation clauses. Even some of the worst contracts I've seen, people have terms in there for cancellation. Now, everybody is all about force majeure these days. Force majeure are clauses, they're usually at the back of the contract that nobody has looked at in several years. They usually play a much bigger part with things like natural disasters, hurricanes, tornadoes, you know, something burns down. That's usually when we've seen these contracts come into play. I have seen very few force majeure clauses that contain language for pandemic. Now, some of them do have language for government shutdown, you know, which could be beneficial to you. But essentially, force majeure would be a clause that you go to that could potentially excuse either party from performing under the contract. So if you have one of these in your contract, we need to pull it out and see what it says to either for you to get out of the contract, or be aware that your client could be looking at it to get out of the contract. So just because it's there doesn't mean it's going to benefit you. Your client, in fact, might use it to benefit them and to get out of your deal. See, what are the terms of your deposits? Now, there is some legal precedent in various states that you can't just be asking for deposits. You know, if you sign a contract with somebody and you ask for half the money up front, if it's related to an event, very often you have to specifically say that the point of that deposit is to reserve a date. Like, that's why you're doing it. Sometimes if you don't say that, somebody could potentially get their deposit back because technically they only gave you the deposit in order to wait for you to perform the services later. So it's important that these are worded correctly, in that the deposits are used to reserve a date. If they're not, then you might want to talk to somebody. Feel free to contact us and see what you have to do. But if you're very clear that it's a non-refundable deposit meant to secure a date, then it means what it says. The deposit is non-refundable. It's meant to secure the date. If your client's the one canceling the date, then, you know, ideally you don't have to refund the deposit. But again, we're going to look to other language in there, especially around that force majeure, and see exactly what the obligations are. A lot of people also already have terms for rescheduling in their contract. Many people that are wedding vendors have been around long enough that they've seen and heard a lot of different scenarios, and they've already accounted for potentially people that, for one reason or another, have to reschedule a wedding, and they've already anticipated, okay, I might not be available that date, we might have different staff, and they might already have terms in there for rescheduling. Ideally, your contract will also have a limitation on your liability, meaning that if something goes wrong under this contract, your client just can't sue you for pain and suffering and anything else under the sun. It should be limited to the amount of money they're paying you under the contract. But again, if you've never really had this contract drafted properly, you might not have that magic language in there. So if we pull out these contracts, we can see, what are you on the hook for? What do you have to perform? What does your client have to do? And what are the parameters of remaining flexible in terms of working with your client in the future? Step 2 is going to be to negotiate with your clients. Business goodwill is a big deal right now. So if you have good language in your contracts that says, look, you're going to book this date, it's not refundable, here's the deposit, and you have a client coming to you and says, well, I don't care what it says, I want my deposit back anyway. You know, my fiance and I both lost our jobs, we're broke, yada, yada, yada. As a measure of business goodwill, you might consider refunding the deposit, even if you are not required to. You always have to take into consideration your business relationships and the goodwill of your clients. Now is not the greatest time to be inflexible about things. What are some consequences to not being flexible? Well, one is your clients could leave you a negative review. So right now, as of this date, I believe Google is still not allowing reviews to be posted, but eventually they will. There's still things like Yelp. There's Better Business Bureau complaints. So you really have to weigh the pros and cons sometimes with being inflexible with your clients. Are people going to sue you? Could they in fact bring a lawsuit to get their deposits and payments made to you to date if they are not going to rebook you for some time in the future? So you really have to be thinking about, I have all these clients. First of all, these people are stressed out. They have had to cancel or postpone or reschedule weddings. They may have lost their jobs. They may be, facing financial hardship. You not being willing to work with them and negotiate is not going to help their stress levels. It's maybe not great for your business relationships. And so think hard. Like, you may have a great contract, everything's in your favor, but from a business perspective, is that the best decision you're going to make? And I would be prepared certainly for some negotiation with your clients. All right, step 3, you got to start planning for a way forward. Eventually this will pass, as all things do. Things will recover, the economy will recover, weddings will come back in a big way. There's going to be some pent-up demand. Whether that's, in the exact near term and is in 2020, that remains to be seen. Again, we have these concerns that even when people are let out of lockdown, there still may be these prohibitions against the really large gatherings. So are people going to be rescheduling a wedding for 300? Maybe not this year. Maybe that's more like later in 2021, 2022, but they are going to come back. It's just going to take a bit of time. You might have to make some temporary pivots in your business. So if you developed a business plan for this year, and if you're a business owner, you should be doing a business plan every year. You might have to go back now and revise some of your projections. However, there might be new opportunities for you and new ways that you can make your clients happy. And you got to start brainstorming now. So maybe things are scaled down, but what's other value that you could offer people that would still net you, decent profit and keep you in business? Think about what people need. What are your clients asking you for? What do they want? What are some additional services, some extra value, and maybe some extra special stuff you could offer to maybe make up for a loss of volume? Right now, goodwill and grace are going to go a long way in your business. So again, even if you have that ironclad contract where you are in the right on every single legal term, you don't have to return deposits, you don't have to rebook a new date, you don't have to do anything for them. Is that the best business decision given what's going on right now in the world and people's stress levels and how upsetting all this is in the first place? I think the more you show people goodwill and grace, the more your business is going to come roaring back as soon as it can. And people aren't going to forget the leeway that you gave them. They're not going to forget the kindness, and you're going to get more referrals from people and just generate a lot more business goodwill the more flexible and the more kind you can be with your own clients and customers. So keep that in mind when going through this stuff and making decisions as to how you're going to handle, cancellations and things going forward. All right, do you need help? We are happy to help you. We can do a flat fee contract review. We can edit your contracts, see what the weaknesses are so that, God forbid, this stuff ever happens again, you at least have a better, more solid agreement going forward. We can certainly help you negotiate with your clients if things tend to get ugly, and we can definitely help you plan a way forward. So our email, info@phillysmallbusinesslawyer.com. Our phone number, 215-482-0285. We have staff all the time that answers that phone, and we're happy to get on a quick call to chat and see how we can help you. Here's our website. It's phillysmallbusinesslawyer.com. There's our email again, our phone number, and if you want to check us out on Facebook, that is the Facebook link. So if you are a wedding vendor, someone in the wedding industry, we hope that you are doing anything you can right now to stay in business, and we wish you well, and we are here for you if you need it. So thanks for joining us today on the webinar, and feel free to send us any questions or comments.